Dr. Wu Lian, The Plague Fighter. Published the 25th of January, 2022. 2020 will be remembered as the time when the COVID-19 pandemic hit upon us. As the virus spread throughout the world, people were made to isolate themselves. The norm of working from home, the need to wear face masks, and the practice of social distancing. Not many realize it, but this is much a flashback of some of the practices that were pioneered 110 years ago by a brilliant Penang-born bacteriologist, Dr. Wu Lian, when he was responsible to deal with the Manchurian pneumonic plague during 1910 to 1911. At that time, a deadly epidemic broke out in Fujian, Fujian, the Chinese sector of the half-Russian town of Harbin in northern Manchuria. Those who contracted the disease developed a high fever, a cough with blood-streaked sputum and purplish discoloration of the skin. Cases spiked, and almost all who were affected died within a few days. Dr. Wu and his assistant arrived in Harbin on Christmas Eve, 1910. The situation was depressing. Temperatures were -30 degrees. The city had just 2 doctors and 5 dressers for a population of 24,000, and dead bodies littered the streets, making the primitive unsanitary conditions of the town even worse. Russian doctors suspected bubonic plague, which is spread by infected flea bites, and examined patients without a mask. They soon contracted the disease as well. The families of victims were unwilling to provide the bodies of their loved ones for a post-mortem because of the Confucian tradition of mourning and burying the dead. The opportunity arose for Dr. Wu when the Japanese wife of a Chinese innkeeper died, and Wu was able to perform the first ever post-mortem exam in China. He found the presence of the plague bacterium Yersinia pestis and evidence that it was a pneumonic plague, spread through the air by human hosts. Knowing that the disease was highly contagious and could spread from person to person through the inhalation of the bacterium, Wu formulated a strategy to control its spread. He had to do this quickly because many people were preparing to return from the city to their villages for the upcoming Lunar New Year, which would cause a further spread of the disease. To keep the infected away from others, disused schools, warehouses, and other facilities like train cars were turned into isolation facilities. In addition, a new plague hospital was built while the old one was burnt down. Dr. Wu also recommended the use of face masks so that people could protect themselves and others from the infection. Despite all the isolation and movement control orders enforced by military troops, the infection and mortality rates continued to rise throughout January, 1911. In addition, there was another problem in Harbin. Dead bodies were piling up because the ground had frozen solid to a depth of 2 meters, making burial impossible. In late January, when Wu visited the burial ground, he found rows of corpses and coffins a mile long, all unburied. This presented him with a most difficult and delicate situation. If the corpses were left unburied, they would pose a huge health risk in the coming spring when rats would gnaw at the infected decomposing bodies and spread the infection further. The only way to quickly dispose of the corpses was to organize a mass cremation. But that would go against the tenets of Confucianism in a country where ancestor worship and visiting ancestral tombs had been viewed as an act of filial piety for centuries. Eventually, the containment measures began to have an impact and mortality rates started falling almost immediately. By the 1st of March, 1911, the last case of the plague in Harbin was registered. In other cities, the outbreak lasted another month before it was finally contained. In all, the epidemic affected an area that stretched almost 2,800 kilometers from Manchuria to Peking and reached Zhejiang and Shandong provinces. It lasted 7 months and claimed some 60,000 lives. Dr. Wu Lian, the person. His name does not exist in our school history books and he has never been accorded the recognition that he truly deserves. Yes, he was a Malaysian. He was named Nolin Tuk, officially registered by a school clerk who transliterated his name into Hokkien, although his Cantonese birth name was Ang Lin Tuk. Upon his arrival in Tianjin, China, he transliterated his name into Mandarin as Wu Lian in 1908. He was born in Penang on the 10th of March, 1879. In 1886, at the age of 7, Wu studied at the Penang Free School. Years later, he sat for the first of his 4 attempts at the Queen's Scholarship Examination. In 1896, the 17-year-old was finally awarded the scholarship and became only the 3rd student from the Penang Free School to bag this prestigious honor. He then went to England to study at Emmanuel College, University of Cambridge. He became the first ethnic Chinese to study medicine in a prestigious university. Wu successfully defended his thesis and, at age 24, had done everything necessary to fulfill the requirements and was awarded the prestigious degree of MD from Cambridge University. Dr. Wu returned to Malaya with his family in 1937, and resumed his private medical practice at the Boon Pharmacy in Ipoh. Like most other Malayans, he also suffered during the Japanese invasion of Malaya. However, he was friendly with many of the Japanese commanders who sought his medical services. He finally retired from medical practice in 1957 at the age of 78. In mid-January, 1960, he moved back to Penang where he was born but died a week later on the 21st of January, 1960, after suffering a stroke. He was survived by his second wife, Marie, 2 sons and 3 daughters. The Times London commented on the 27th of January, 1960, by his death, the world of medicine has lost a heroic and almost legendary figure in the world at large, one of whom it is far more indebted to than it knows. Wu gained great fame as a pioneering plague fighter and became the first Malayan nominated for the Nobel Prize in Medicine in 1935. Wu Leonte Institute was opened on the 24th of December, 2015 with the aim at researching infectious diseases and sharing the resulting knowledge with everyone. The article was written by Muhammad Hazrul Arif MD Mokhtar and Prof. Victor Ho for this.